Okay, so shall we start now?
We can start.
Okay, so how was the show last night?
Killer. Amazing.
Oh, great.
Absolutely awesome.
So how many times have you been to Japan in total?
In our whole career?
Yes.
The
First one was 84, Super Rock.
83.
83, so 83?
Yeah, we did our
I'd
shows
say at least 6 times already.
6 times. So what is the impression of this
at
country?
least half a dozen times.
I love Japan. Japan rocks.
Thank you.
Period.
Good.
And you know, it's a cool
Special.
Okay, so I'm going to start talking about some music. So,
Okay, man.
okay, ANVIL is considered to be a traditional heavy metal band, but I think the music is varied, even from the very beginning, from rock and roll to hard rock to fast thrasher stuff and heavy stuff. Who was the biggest influence and inspiration in music when you started the band?
Black Sabbath, Deep Purple would be a good place to start. You know, American bands, you know, with Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent.
Yeah, his guitar playing,
Yeah.
not his political view. But then again, you know, some of his political views are pretty right on too, so it's hard to say. Michael Schenker.
Oh, great.
I love Michael Schenker.
So is he an influence on your guitar playing too?
Yeah.
So what about today? Do you still listen to heavy metal?
Still listen to the same.
I don't listen to no heavy metal at all.
Or not at all?
Yeah,
So you are not keeping up with the today's scene?
I only listen to 60s school rock, 70s classic rock.
So you
I don't listen to any new bands at all.
So you stick to the old bands you used to listen to when you were young?
Well, I listen to new bands, but nothing seems to be impressive. And I find all drummers today overplay. So it's just not happening.
Not good. Yeah, a couple of people.
Yeah, they have no feel. They should go back and learn how to do it right.
Alright, so ANVIL is often considered to be one of the roots of thrash metal or speed metal because of these songs like 666, Shadow Zone, Water Mount. So what was the trigger to start playing such fast in the beginning?
It was our way of, really our way of interpreting what Deep Purple was doing. You know?
Like some like speed.
Well, instead of playing, you know, single bass drum beats, play double bass drum beats. And instead of going dun 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 dun, you go da-li-li-li-li-li.
Tremolo.
Yeah, double it up. And we didn't realize when, you know, we don't realize that when we did that,
Yeah,
we did it
just
as
innocent. You know, we didn't realize that we were actually
Just
innovating the future of stuff. We were just a bunch of kids having fun, making up cool music.
so, but despite of those fast songs, you tend to start the album with a slower song, like Fortune Fire, metal.
Well, that's not necessarily true. I don't really think so. I certainly don't think the song Speed of Sound is a slow song. That was a title track. Right?
Yeah,
So,
that's
you know, it's... And I don't really view the song Hope in Hell as being a slow song either.
really.
It's not slow.
But,
That's not slow like Forged in Fire or This Is 13. Not at all.
well, but
It's at least twice as fast.
yeah, but I want to talk about the album like Forged in Fire.
Okay.
Because I think you could have a choice to start the album with, say, Shadow Zone instead of Forged in Fire. I think Forged in Fire is a classic, it's a great song. But at the same time, you know, the faster song like Shadow Zone could be appealing to wider audience. It's just a personal opinion, but have you ever thought about?
Can't change it. No point talking about it.
Yeah, of course. But
There's no point to it. It's like that's your preference. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's the way it should be.
yeah, of course. But I want to know if you have any intention to start. I think it's a.
When we chose to use the song Forge and Fire as the opening.
It was a title track.
It was a title track.
So we just figured we'd start the album with the title track.
And it was interesting enough because it caught you off guard because it went bum bum. So it was from silence to that banging is just a good place to start. Had the album started with Shadow Zone would not have sounded as fast. It's because Forge and Fire is before it that it comes across as being so fast.
It sounds even faster compared to. I see that. That's a great answer. Thank you. Okay. So you're from Canada. So I think. Do you think it affects you musically, being a Canadian?
I always believe that there is that wherever you come from, there's certain aspects that it comes out in the music. I'm not really absolutely certain what that identity is, but it is there. Although I don't think it's as prevalent with ANVIL as it is with most Canadian bands. But then having said that,
we don't sound like we're from Canada.
Yeah, but having said that, we don't sound Canadian, and therefore we are an international band, where most Canadian bands stay in Canada by sounding Canadian.
Yes.
You know,
Okay.
like Chilliwack,
Okay. Okay. And,
like Tom Cochrane. What are other Canadian typical bands?
Bryan Adams.
Yeah, but that's more international. I'm talking about bands that stay.
What, like Max Webster or?
Yeah, Max Webster,
April
or
Wine,
Canadian
or-
Sound, or like I said, Chilliwack. What's another band that? Yeah, St. Peter's. Tom Cochrane,
Okay.
Red Rider.
Red Rider, yeah.
So and your album title is always alliterate. So
Yeah.
was it intentional from the very beginning? A bit hard and heavy. Was it intentional?
Yeah, it's just tradition.
Initially, it wasn't intentional.
So when you started?
It was started out with innocence, and then it turned into intentional. It turned into a thing now we can't stop no more.
When was the first time you did it intentionally?
I don't know.
Or the second one? Okay. Alright. So how do you pick up the songs to play live? It seems like you play the songs from the first 3 albums and the 3 last albums. So nothing in the middle. So why is that?
Because no one knows the stuff. What's the point of playing songs that no one wants to hear or no one knows?
Okay. So
All the middle albums were so poorly distributed, and they're so hard to find. If we do play them, how are you going to go out and find them? Where are you going to find those records? You might like the song, but you're not going to find the records. So you might as well only play songs that people are going to recognize and know and be able to find the records. So that's basically why. And I think that our direction, especially now, is much more focused than in the middle era. The middle era was like a lot of people felt in its time that
90s and
that it's not the ANVIL that they knew.
it was a bad time for heavy metal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a bad time for ANVIL too. Those are the dark years.